Welcome to lesson 23, when we are going to complete our discussion on power sources and types of power in political science. As you know, we started to discuss political science and their terms, and we said power is one of the most important terms in political science that reflects a lot of issues and cases. And today we're going to complete these arguments and discussions. Just to review that, we started to talk about power, then we're going to talk about authority and legitimacy. Power is one of the most important concepts in political science. In fact, some political scientists see it's a defining element in disciplines. Power affects how resources are distributed, how countries interact, whether peace or war prevails, and how groups and individuals pursue their interests. That is, power affects the myriad of topics studied by political science. Ironically, however, power is one of the most difficult concepts to define. This is a very important point I want you to keep in mind. It is very important to understand power is not something to define, it's something to understand and analyze. It's a mostly fundamental level. Power is an ability to influence an event or outcome that allows the agent to achieve an objective and or to influence other agent to act in a manner in which the second agent or its own would not choose to act. As we said before, it's the concept to make others do or not do based on your own desire. In terms of the first meaning and interest, group, for example, could be said to have power if it succeeded in reaching its financial goals. The interest group in the case would have achieved its objectives if its assets increased to meet its terms aims. This type of power may or may not involve exercising power over another agent. In another way, or in other words, the interest group could use its assets wisely and build up its revenues without enacting power over any other interest groups, political parties or politicians or people or anyone, and so forth. However, in regards to the second meaning, having power means having the ability to change, the ability to affect others over others. For example, one country can be viewed as exercising power over another if it can influence the second country to act in a manner favored by the first country but not favored by the second. It's the old, it is exactly how we said that you are forcing others to do things that you are desiring while others may do it in spite of their will. Okay, let's talk more about the modern methodology in addressing and describing actually power, how modern thinkers describe power, the types of power, etc., etc. Let's talk more about the meaning. The focal point of the study of political institutions is power and its uses. Although we think of the concept of power as being associated with, particularly with politics, and so to say political science, but it's in fact exists in all types of social relationships, as we said before. Power relationships are present in all aspects of society. They go right down to the depth of society. They are not localized in the relation between states, citizens. They are digging deep and the basic of building these communities, building these societies. Power types are involved in all patterns of relationship. It is fundamental important for the sociology to study net manifold all the patterns of interference and power in shaping communities nowadays. I just want you to keep in mind that all kinds of studies concentrated in power. And a very simple power is the ability to make others affected by your desires, to have the authority, to have the ability to change issues based on your own willing and interests, and sometimes involving in the direct use of force. And that's why we talked about the concept of using force against each other. Okay. To summarize, it might be said that power is the ability of groups or individuals to assert themselves sometimes, but not always, and opposition to the desire of others. Many decisions are made without opposition because of the great power decision makers always. According to Max Weber, power is the probability that one actor within a social relationship will be in a position to carry out his own will despite resistance, regardless of the pace on which this probably resides. He further writes, positions of power can emerge from social relations in drawing rooms as well as in the market, from the rostrum of lecture hall, as well as command posts of regiments, from an erratic relationship, as well as from scholarly discussion, etc., etc. It plays a part in family, between husband and wife, in school, in community, between neighbors, and everywhere. All what I want you to understand from these two slides is that power is not something you could separate from the structure of the community, whether in social, political, or cultural contexts. Weber saw power in a different way, and he was one of the most important thinkers talked about power. To him, power is the chance of man or a number of men to realize their own will in accountable action, even against the resistance of others who are participating in action. We have other thinkers like Anvan Gendlert, who noted that power is, among other things, the ability to enforce one's moral claims. The powerful can thus affect or endorse their moral defaults. Celebrated socialists Anthony Giddens also see power as the ability to make a difference, to change things from what they would otherwise have been, as he puts it, transformative capacity. Power can be defined by saying that A exercises power over B when A affects B in a manner contrary to B's willing or interest. According to Luke, for example, to Stephen Luke's, power has three dimensions or phases: decision making, non-decision making, and shaping desires. For some social theories, especially those linked to postmodernism, the very notion of large-scale microstructure of power has come under serious attack. For example, Farquhar's conception of power demands that we should approach in a micro way, seeing power in all social relationships and working in specific ways in all kinds of particular institutional setting, whether the prison or the clinic. We must explore the intimate relation between power and knowledge. Through his case studies of madness, medicine, prison, sexuality, Haeckel has highlighted the organization of knowledge and power. He argued that a new type of power, disciplinary power, has evolved during the 19th century. All what I want you to understand of this, it's as any other term, it's developed through years through thinkers' participation, contribution, and building political science theories. It is not a rigid, static term. It is a dynamic, but still have a common idea about affecting others and having the privilege to do whatever you want over others' desires. When scholars, thinkers start to deal with power, they agreed upon one point, that the term power concerned with the regulation of government. Disciplinary power as exercised in prison, schools, places of work. Disciplinary power operates at the expense of individual freedom and choice. In their point of view, notions like ruling class domination simply obscure the micro realities of power. Or what I want you to realize that the usage of the term power in thinkers' literature and writings varied based on their mentalities and backgrounds. Why we have politicians or thinkers see power as core of political life, others see it part of economic life. Others see power as part of everything. The importance of all of this, it is there, it is part of the all channels of community, but some thinkers believe that the economic power is the most important, while others see that political power is the most important. Others believe that the power of a family is the most important. All these discussions actually end up with one important outcome, which is power is a core element in shaping communities, every age and every place. That's why they go back to describe patterns of power. They said especially Max Weber described or believed that there are three independent and equally important orders of power as following. He believed that number one, the economic power is the basic of all powers, including political. It is based upon an objective relation to the mode of production, a group's condition in the labor market, and its chances. Economic power, according to him, refers to the measurement of the ability to control even every single element and process inside the economics, to control events by virtue of material advantage. In the same sense, he suggests social power. It is based upon informal community opinion, family position, honor, prestige, patterns of consumption, lifestyle, etc. Weber placed special emphasis on the importance of social power, which often takes priority over economic interests. Contemporary socialists have also given importance to social status, so much so that they sometimes seem to have underestimated the importance of political power. The last one is political power. It is based upon the relations to the legal structure, party affiliation, and extensive bureaucracy. Political power is institutionalized in the form of large-scale government bureaucracies. One of the present ideas has been that they are controlled by elites, that is, small, select, privileged group. Political power concerns about the activities of the state, which is not confined to national boundaries. The networks of political power can stretch across countries, across regions. Global political power involves the power to tax, the power to distribute resources, the power to affect citizens, to affect the list of rights, to affect the existence of humankind in general. Okay, based on Weber type, there are a few other types also which are as following. And actually, they are a result of the progress of the political life in general. Number one, knowledge power. Foucault said power is intimately linked with knowledge. Power and knowledge produce one another. He saw knowledge as a means of keeping tabs on people and controlling them. Actually, the power of knowledge is nowadays one of the most important patterns of powers that affect people, affect their tendencies, and control the shape of the world. The second is the military power. It involves the use of physical coercion. Um, Many thinkers thought that this kind of power is very essential to assess, to say loudly who is the strongest. A modern mass military system developed into bureaucratic organizations and significantly changed the nature of organization and fighting wars. According to Weber, few groups in society base their power purely on force or military might. But it's still the idea of having strong armies, very dangerous weapons are controlling many states nowadays. Ideological power, it involves power over ideas and beliefs. For example, communism, fascism. Iran is one of the most important examples for this, actually. These types of ideologies are frequently oppositional to dominate institutions and play an important role in the organization of devotees into sects and parties. According to many thinkers, there are two types of power, either to distribute or to collect. And using ideology, it could do both. It could collect people in one small group and separate them from the entire world or so on. So the power of ideology, it is one of the most dangerous because if you make people believe in whatever you want, you can make them do whatever you want. Let's talk about the distributional power. It is a power over others. It is the ability of individuals to get others to help them pursue their own goals. It's held by individuals. Collective power is exercised by social groups. It may be exercised by one social group over another. Let's talk about sources of power. There are three basic sources of power, as we said. Force, defined earlier, force is the actual physical force or the threatened, latent force. Use of coercion to impose one's will on others. When leaders impression or force or even execute political decisions, they thus apply force. Often, however, sheer force accomplishes little. Although people can be physically resistant or restrained, they cannot be made to perform complicated tasks by force alone. Because you could force someone for a short time, short period of time. You could force them to do certain tasks, but for a long time and for complicated tasks, a lot of doubts in this point. Another source of power is the source of influence. It refers to the exercise of power through a process of persuasion, actually. It is your ability to make others doing things without really forcing them. It's like to creating an opinion, to convince them, to influence their opinion and their ideas, then ask them to do whatever you want them to do. It is the ability to affect the decisions and the action by others. A citizen might change his or her position or beliefs based on certain sessions, awareness sessions, media, persuasion, discussion, etc., etc. And this is one of the most important points, because if you make others believe in what you want them to believe, then you win. Because if you force them, once the ability to force is away, they would stop whatever they are doing. but if they start to believe in, it's it. That's it. Another source is authority. To power that has been institutionalized and it's recognized by the people over whom it is exercised. It is established to make decisions and order the action of others. It's a form of legitimate power, actually, making your power legitimate, having this privilege over others, having the ability to make others accept this power in a way or another. The people give to the ruler the authority to rule, and they obey willingly without the threat of force. People tend to obey the government, their parents, policymakers, officers, because they accept the identity, the right, the role of these people or parties, and they accept the relation between them and the government. And this is one of the most also dangerous issues, because sometimes they do accept things without believing or without thinking or understanding. There is difference between authority and influence. Authority is an official right to make and enforce decisions, whereas influence is the ability to affect the actions of others apart from the authority to do so. Authority stems from rank, whereas influence resets largely upon personal attributes. Authority is based upon the status on holds, whereas influence is based upon the esteem on receives. Let's now move to another point, the word hard power. After we discuss certain classification of powers, it's time now to talk about another type of classification. Other thinkers said that away of Webber and other thinkers, there is another pattern of classification, and number one would be hard power. Hard power is the all type of powers that used by forcing. It is a coercive approach in international political relations, especially on that involves the use of military power in a way. Hard power is the use of military and economic means to influence the behavior or interests of other political bodies or communities and people. Another pattern here is soft power. Soft power is the contrast of hard power. It is actually the ability to involve shaping the preferences of others through appeal and attraction. It is more like convincing, using certain tools to affect others without the sense of forcing. The ability to attract and co-opt, to cooperate, to shape the preferences of others, as we said, without forcing them to do something. Great power, it is whenever there is a huge power in the global system that changed the entire track of the system. It is when a country or a state recognized as having the ability and the privilege to exert the influences all over the global system as whole. A state that is recognized as having the ability to exercise the influence on the other countries in a higher level. Let's talk about superpower. Superpower is state with a dominant position in the international relations, preeminent among great powers and characterized by its unparalleled ability to exert influence or project power on a global scale. Emerging power, state that is considered to be rising in economic or influence, etc. It is very important to see these emerging power like Japan, for example, like China, because it threats the existence of what we called the great power. Polarity. Polarity describes the nature of international system at any given time in terms of how power is distributed. Unipolarity is an international system in which there is only one dominant pole or actor. Bipolarity, it's when we have two powers. The system where we have two controlling or dominant powers. Multipolarity, it's when we have more than two core powers controlling the system. It is like when we have like America, Britannia, Spain, all these countries. Democratic state, a state which a system of government in which all the people are involved in making decisions about the affairs. So the power here is for people. Semi-democratic state, a stable state that combines democratic and authoritarian elements. Here, some of the power in people's hands, while the other part of power is in the government's hands. Non-democratic states, a state that lacks the central characteristics of democratic states, and thus the power is centralized by the government control. Autocratic states, a state that ruled by a single person who unlimited with unlimited power. It is depend on one person who is controlling all over aspects of the country. Failed state, this is also a new term in political science, a state that is unable to operate as a viable political unit. Rogue state, a state that has a foreign policy that poses a threat to other states. All what I want in the end of these sessions is to attract your attention to a very important point, is that power is a manipulative term that could be used to justify certain attitudes, behaviors, and phenomena in the community. It could also be a tool to change the pattern of relationship. Thank you so much for joining me for this. Please be safe and always remember things are exactly how you want to see it. It's not how they are. Looking forward to see you in the coming lectures. Thank you.